Members of the Aryan Brotherhood, who were once locked down in the control units at ADX in Florence, Colorado, and USP Marion, once upon a time collected a tax or a portion of the illegal proceeds that came from gambling rackets at other prisons. Those prisons would have been Lompoc, Leavenworth, Atlanta, Lewisburg, and I think Terre Haute, I believe. Hello, welcome to Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you like this video, please push like and share with your family, friends, neighbors, enemies, etc. I got a comment the other day from Private Citizen 4001, and he wrote, "I'd love to hear a video breaking down how the gambling table hustle works. Are the winnings taxed? How much? Why would someone play at a table they know they will be taxed on? Love your content, bro." Thanks for the comment. And even though this video isn't specifically what you're asking, I can tie it in and I can give you an answer. So here's how things worked, okay? So first, members of the Aryan Brotherhood, the original Aryan Brotherhood out of the California Department of Corrections, in the 70s and 80s found their way into the Federal Bureau of Prisons, federal prison system. Up until the 90s, many of them remained a general population. However, the shot callers or key figures, such as Barry Mills and T.D. Bingham, Big Mac, and there's a few others, they were locked down in the control units, and they were getting money from guys in general population. And let me tell you how this worked. So, in prison, there are gambling tables, poker tables, card tables, whatever. So there's some in housing units, rec centers, sometimes on the rec yard, it just depends. And if it's a white ran table, especially during those times or those periods when they were a huge influence in the BOP, they had either shot callers in each of those yards or representatives of the Aryan Brotherhood, if you want. And I'll give you a good example of that. So here's how it worked. Guy would want to start a poker table, or he'd have a poker table, right? And that table would have been known to be a, quote, brand table. Brand meaning the Aryan Brotherhood. And people that sat down at that table would know that that's a brand table. However, the players in general did not care. What they cared about is playing cards. What they cared about is hopefully winning. And what happened to the proceeds if they lost, they didn't care. Now, I knew a guy named Johnny Johnson who was from Kansas City, who was in his 60s, was he in his 70s, possibly, in the 90s. Let's just call it late 60s. He had done a lot of time in the feds, and he was around certain members of the Aryan Brotherhood. So he had a relationship with the ABs, and he was fond of them, whatever. When I was at Leavenworth, I got there in 1998. Johnny Johnson was running a poker table in A3 and in the rec center sometimes, and that was a brand table. Now, this is how it works. Well, there's different ways to run a poker table. Sometimes they collect a tax. The dealer of the table could collect a tax from each of the winnings. That happens, okay? So let's say, for example, there's a pot, you win the pot, and the table will get 10% of that. I think it was 10%. In my case, or the Dirty White Boys, I just ate a little while ago. The Dirty White Boys, most of us outside of B Upper did not run a table. It was our table, so to speak, and what we'd do is we'd put somebody there to deal, and the dealer would get a percentage. Basically, we'd split whatever the winnings were at the end of the night. The winnings could be the house actually played a game of cards, or he just collected a percentage of the proceeds. Private Citizen, you asked, why would anybody sit down and do it? Because that's the only game in town. Bottom line. Now, there are some tables where the house or the person running, the dealer, so to speak, will play and not collect a percentage. But that has to be just an individual that has a little thing going or whatever, but I'm telling you, and actually I just said 10%. I believe it was 5% at most. It's been some years, okay? Now here's what would go down. I'm going to use Johnny Johnston as an example, okay? Because he sticks out. He would collect, okay, he was the house, okay? So he would get a cut from all the winnings just by being the house, okay? So he would say that he was sending kick up, whatever it was. Damn, I forgot the terminology. He would say that he was sending it to members of the Aryan Brotherhood who were in the ADX. I will tell you this. I had my suspicion. I think he was using their name at times. Now, that's not to say he didn't send $100 every month or $100 every couple months or whatever. Probably did do that. As a matter of fact, he was a wheeler and dealer. He had his hands in everything. So he had sources on the street who could send money to people. And just so I'm clear on how that works, let's say, for example, that I'm a poker player, okay? So I need stamps to play the game. So that's US postage stamps. Well, stamps in prison, I didn't want to get into this right now. Stamps in prison are used as currency, but the value that you pay for the actual stamps when you go to the commissary or to the store and buy it are greatly different. For example, I just left FMC Butner. A book of stamps purchased from the commissary was $14.60. But once that stamp leaves the commissary and you use it on the compound or in the compound for food, drugs, booze, gambling, whatever, it had a $6 value. So that same 20 stamps had a $6 value, okay? I know it gets confusing and it's a little crazy, but it works absolutely well. So now I want to go buy 20 books of stamps because I'm a gambler, okay? Or a drug user, whatever. Or 500 or 100 books of stamps for $500. The more you buy in bulk, the cheaper it gets, okay? My family member on the street or friend, whatever, would then send money to the person who has the stamps. Who has the stamps? Drug dealers, bookies, people who hustle in the kitchen, they have the stamps. So then people buy bulks of stamps from them, and those stamps in turn would go to, in this example, the poker table. The house then gets a percentage of these stamps, takes the stamps, and then he sells them, okay? The money goes from the person he sells them to somebody on the street. Now, it could go in commissary. So people do buy stamps in commissary, okay? So there's a bunch of different ways. Now, let's get back to Johnny Johnson and the tax of the AB. The Aryan Brotherhood is notorious about taxing white guys in prison. Once upon a time, they were protectors. Now they're predators, like most prison gangs, okay? So, for example, if you bring in a package of dope, let's say you're bringing in heroin, an ounce, they want 20%, okay? That's how it works. On the table, I don't know exactly what their cut was supposed to be. And again, I have my suspicion on people who were supposed to be collecting tax for the brand, if they really even sent it or not. How would anybody know? Only a few people would know. Now, if they were claiming that, and then members of the ABs or associates or affiliates or just some guy from California specifically wanting to be in the ABs or do favor for the Aryan Brotherhood, he can come hurt that guy that's claiming that that's a brand table. So that's basically how that works. I will say this, and I've said this many times. In 1999, the Dirty White Boys, led by Robert Wolf at the time, told the ABs at Leavenworth to go F themselves. And at that time, the tables that the Aryan Brotherhood had for well over a decade then went to the Dirty White Boys. They took those tables from the ABs. I was there. I saw it happen. But the brand did have tables for many years, even when the leadership or even when there was not members of the Aryan Brotherhood on the compound. It's crazy when you think about it, the influence that they had. In some instances in Victorville, they still have influence, from what I'm told recently, but that influence is waning for sure. So yeah, that's about it for this one. What else? Was there something? There was something else connected to this that, well, whatever. Hope you liked the video. Hope this made sense to you guys. Otherwise, it's Wednesday. Have a great day.